Good afternoon, everybody. This is Debbie Howe with American Student Achievement Institute, and right by my side is Amy Drake Siegel. Wow, where'd that come from? The Director of Programming. So I want to welcome everyone to Steering Team Webinar number 2. We're going to talk about data collection. So let's get this, I guess let's get this party started, right, Amy?
Let's do it.
All right. Periodically, Amy, will you help me answer questions?
Absolutely.
Great, thank you.
I'll go ahead and turn off my camera.
Oh, and me too.
Hey, Debbie.
Yes?
I noticed that Charlene Koenig has a hand up. It looks like possibly Charlene doesn't have audio, so I will reach out to her and see if we can help.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
So, and with that, we're going to go ahead and begin. We today will start with review of our review of what we did last webinar. RSC is a data-driven cultural change process, and your school is in for an exciting, successful adventure. So thank you guys for joining us. We all know that adventures take preparation, practice, and hard work, and we're already off to such a good start. So let's continue the preparation phase. First, we're going to review the information from our last webinar. We're just going to briefly go over the tasks in case some of you, I do see that almost everybody they are submitting tasks. I have, I think, 2 schools that need to really start with the beginning tasks and get me the steering team entered and then submitted. So if you're one of those 2 schools, please reach out to me if you need help. Otherwise, I'm going to start sending some more reminders. And with that, we should catch everybody. So first, let's review the counseling activities. We have 5 groups, and those are guidance, counseling, advocacy, management, and non-program. Again, we're going to kind of fly through these. So with this, then we're going to lead into collecting data and our upcoming tasks and the importance of collecting data and documenting accurate data. So when we look at guidance activities, we're really looking at the foundation again, because we want to make sure everybody knows how this is the foundation of where we're going to begin. And Amy, I think, will look over this a little bit whenever she is going to help present the time use log tools for you guys. So we're going to start with guidance activities. Guidance activities are those activities that teach all students the knowledge and skills needed to make sound decisions in areas that impact their academic, career, and social emotional development. Those activities can be provided by counselors, community members, teacher advisors, classroom teachers. We also will have examples listed in some of the tools, so I don't think I need to give you, for instance, financial aid and college visits. Those are guidance activities. Counseling activities would be activities that provide counseling for targeted students who have social emotional concerns that are interfering with their learning. Those activities are to be provided by only licensed counselors, licensed school social workers, or licensed school psychologists. Advocacy activities are those activities that create an environment that supports rigorous learning for all groups of students and all individual students. Of course, you know, advocacy would be when you're speaking on behalf of a student. Again, we'll have some examples in our tools. Management activities are those activities performed behind the scenes in order for the school counseling program to run smoothly and efficiently. Those can be provided by just about anyone as well. So this webinar, by the way, would be one of those management activities. So if you were logging your time today, you would be logging this RSC webinar as a management activity. Non-program activities are those activities that do not help students, 1, master guidance standards, or 2, address personal or social problems that are interfering with learning. So again, while non-program activities are important for school function, they are not activities which support the counseling program. And I think this is one of the biggest areas that we have where people have questions, what are considered non-program activities. So some of the examples that we have are bus duty, graduation, discipline, report card, state testing. Because remember, while you're working on these non-program tasks, you have less time to spend with and assist your students, the students' needs with guidance, counseling, and advocacy. So also let's remember this school counseling impact pyramid. Remember the impact pyramid. Our goal is to increase student achievement and success by helping students make sound choices through guidance and counseling activities and support. So counselors help students make sound choices by providing guidance lessons in areas of academics, career, and personal social development, and providing counseling for students who have a personal or social problem that is interfering with learning. So we're going to briefly hit on the organizational structure that, like I said, most of you have already created, and I appreciate that. You've built some very strong steering teams and some strong councils. But again, we're just going to do a quick reminder. So while steering team members have responsibilities, they do not have to complete the tasks by themselves. So make sure that you support your steering team members. Somebody may find themselves in recruiting, but they may actually delegate some of those tasks out, and that's perfectly fine. That's the way we've designed, or we hope that you guys find that it's designed, the process. Your council meeting facilitation person could also ask for different meeting facilitators. So that's a good way to handle those council meeting and facilitation responsibilities. So if you have any other questions on that, you can, like I said, this is just a reminder, so please let me know if I don't cover something that in this review part that you have questions on. Our council makeup, we ask, or our goal for you is at least 30. Some communities find that a little bit hard to meet that 20. Some communities have a hard time meeting that 20 to 30 goal that we've set for you. What we want you to make sure and understand is in the rubric, we have listed those needed pieces to build a good, firm foundation for your council. Those also would be asterisked here. The teachers, the students, counselors, administrators, parents, economic development, business and industry. So if you're struggling with building that council, please make sure and reach out to me. Remember, these are not your worker bees, these are your thinkers. And ask yourself, who benefits the community's young people? Who benefits if our community's young people are well educated? Those are the people that you want at the table, and they also should reflect your community. And also remember that this task, you can continue to add members to your council, but like I said, just make sure that those specific in the rubric, those that we have listed are needed on the council. Those are needed, perspectives on the council. So remember, while this may look a bit overwhelming, we've talked about that before, or in the last webinar, we're working on these in sections and the tasks are in chunks in order. So we're also here to do that to assist you through it. So you're not doing it alone. You're not doing it all at once. So just kind of focus on the steps that we have listed in the online system. And with that, I'm going to take you right to data collection. This month's tasks. First, Amy, should we stop and see if anybody have any questions?
I haven't received any questions. If anybody would like to ask a question, though, in your GoToMeeting tools, you can raise a hand. So you just click on your little hand.
Yeah, and I forgot in the very beginning of the webinar, they can also, we need to give them instructions on either raising their hands when they have a question, or you all can type in a question box if you
Yes.
have a question. Okay, and then we'll make sure and get to that. Okay, on to this month. Okay, back to the school counseling impact pyramid. Our data is important, so let's talk about how we will gather this data. We want to be able to collect data at all 4 levels. We want to find out, what do students know? That tells us their guidance needs. What social emotional issues do kids have? That tells us their counseling needs. And then we want to look at the choices that students are making, and what is our current achievement, school achievement data. And that comes from your school improvement plan. Our main focus, see if we can do this. Oops. Our main focus is on student choice data. This is the data we want to move and be responsible for. This year, we'll be creating a baseline data and then continue in the following years to track those changes. So just like teachers use instructional methods and evaluate those instructional methods through test scores to find if students are learning, we're planning to create baseline data looking at student choices to evaluate if our programs and activities are positively affecting student choices. So that's what we're building. So when we look at data collection instruments, we have the counselor time use log that we'll discuss in a little bit. We have self-studies, student opportunities, self-studies, elements of model school counseling program self-study, counselor use of free guidance resources, and school counseling resources self-studies. And then the last one, which is a biggie and very important, is the student survey. The student survey is a comprehensive survey of all students covering plans and choices, guidance needs, counseling needs, and perceptions of the school counselor. That survey window will be January 1st through February 1st. And again, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but we want to make sure that all of the schools are planning on getting a survey date so that the schools are ready whenever that survey window opens. The College and Career Readiness Survey must be completed by February 1st. We'll be using and sending the data results to your council members to assist in that February meeting. Again, we're looking forward, so you can come back to this information, but we just want to give you a heads up to make sure that you get that on your school calendar, the student survey. Your team and council will need to look through and evaluate this information in regard to determining your school's direction. So the counselor time use logs should begin as soon as tomorrow, and then the self-studies you'll be completing throughout the month. Sorry, that was a little bit out of order, but these are all the data collection instruments, and those are the reasons that they're important to do. So the data collection, what do we want to gain from our data collection instruments? So from students, we want to know, what plans do they have for the future? What choices are students making? What knowledge do they have about careers, educational opportunities and process, social emotional skills? What social emotional concerns are interfering with learning? With counselors, we'd like to know, or we want to find out, how do counselors use their time? What do students think of their counselors' knowledge, skills, and disposition? How are counselors using free guidance resources provided by the state? And then program, we want to know what resources are available for counselors, what best practices are in place, and what opportunities are being provided for students. And I'll take you through a couple of those tasks when we get to the online system toward the end of the webinar. How will you use the student survey data? And the reason that we're going to go through this is I want to make sure that again, you're going to be, Amy and I talked about this, and we're hoping that we'll have a webinar, or a webcast tool for you on instructions for the student survey if you have not ever completed the college and career readiness survey. So we're not really going to go through how to do that today, but I think it's important to know why that data, why that student survey, what we're going to get from the student survey data. So I'm going to take you through a somewhat brief explanation of what to expect from the student survey. We have a tool in the online system where you can go and watch, or we will have where you can watch a video with detailed explanation. And we have a website with detailed explanation to implement and read through your survey results. Survey reports group data, that's one thing that we're going to be able to collect, and it will look something like this when your students answer questions. This is from the student engagement portion, and so it will, the questions are going to be different for the different grade levels. So they'll be asked questions and then they'll either answer yes or no. And this is what your report will look like in the very, whenever you print that report out. These are an example of the questions from the future plans portion of the student survey. And then I also want you to know when we gather this data, who can access this data. So some of the information from the student survey is public. Plans and choices portion is public and available to school counselors and colleges. Guidance needs is also public and available to school counselors and colleges. But when we get down to the student assistance needs, the perceptions of counselors and the counselor survey responses, you notice that the public that's not an available report to the public. School counselors get it, colleges do not. And then again, just as a reminder, this perceptions of school counselors is not available unless the counselor agrees to allow it to be available. And again, there will be instructions on that whenever we get to this survey. Oh, and the other thing I do want to tell you is, or inform you about, when you set up the survey, you see some of these sets say required and some say optional. If your school is intending to apply for the Ask a Ramp Award or earn the Indiana Gold Star School Counseling Award, these are not optional sets. These are all required sets if you are looking at earning those awards. Okay, so the survey individual data. So the reports here, if an individual has agreed to allow, the student has agreed to allow access to certain portions of his or her survey questions, and again, it's FERPA, we are FERPA compliant. But one of the tools, I just want to show you one of the data collection tools that we'll have. All of these are all about, all of this is about the data that you will be able to collect, which is the baseline for the process that you're creating. So school counselors, if a student says that he or she wants to allow that information available, when they answer, students who don't know where to find extra help, a school counselor has a tool where they can create an email list of those students, and then you can just email if you have a time where there's homework help after school. You just have a database, or you have a base of email list that you can email to. This allows the counselor to contact the student. Again, it's not a public option, only a counselor option. And then here's another list. If the students were to answer, juniors and seniors who are interested in DePaul University, if you've got DePaul coming in, you will have the option to create an email list to just copy and paste the names over and tell them that you have a DePaul representative coming in. Again, not public, only for counselors. So remember, you need to carve out a time to administer the College and Career Readiness Student Survey between January 1st and February 1st. You will have tools in the online systems in the form of a video and online instructions, and you have me to assist you when you're ready to dive into that survey. So right now, the goal is the importance of the data and get it on the calendar for your school. Remember the 5-minute rule. So whenever you're confused or have a question for more than 5 minutes, make sure and reach out to me. So this has just been a brief breakdown on the student survey data and how you'll be able to use it. In a few minutes, we'll discuss what it actually looks like. So next we have, how will you use the counselor time use data? This is a big important piece. This is something that you need to be doing as soon as tomorrow. So with that, Amy, can I go ahead and transfer this over to you?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. So I'm not sure. There you go.
Yeah, I got it. It took me a second to, we haven't done this before, so it took a
Right.
second to get there. Okay, so this is your process page. And you've already done your October tasks, hopefully, and you're down in collect data. And I just want to go over how you set up the time use log, because as Debbie said, that's something that your counselors, all of the counselors in your building, need to start doing as soon as possible. And the reason we have you do this, this being a data-rich process, we're going to have your council eventually look at your counselor time use logs. Not at the logs specifically, but at the report that shows how much time you're spending in each of those areas, how much in counseling, how much in guidance, program management, and non-program. I'm missing one. Debbie, I can't think of the other one. Advocacy.
There you go.
So, and then your council hopefully will be able to make some decisions about things that need to happen to change those percentages. So if you're spending, 20, 30% of your time in non-program, that's time that you're not spending in guidance and counseling. And your council, can talk about if that's okay or not. And hopefully, with the help of administration, perhaps come up with a plan to move some of that time. But before those decisions can be made, we have to collect data. So in step 3, we're going to estimate counselor time use percentages. And this is a neat exercise to do just to get an idea of where you think the counselors in your building are spending their time. So just your best guess, put in what you spent in. Debbie, can you help me remember? Is this the 2000? Is it so far in the current school year, or is it in the last school year, 2017-18?
So I believe it should be based off of last year. Where
Okay.
have you spent your time in the past?
So thinking back and working to just give an estimate of that. So when you have that completed, you'll submit it for review. And then in step 4, we're looking at beginning the counselor time use log. So I'm going to click on the enter button. And this is our the tool we use to set up the time use log. So I am going to do this from the beginning. We have set in as a default that our log start time is 7 a.m. and our log end time is 4 p.m. But let's say that we know at our school counselors are usually in the building until 5 o'clock. We can change that to 5 o'clock. And then we can also set the minutes per time block. And what that means is how many minutes will be in each time block. A lot of schools base this on their class periods, how many minutes they can divide by, knowing that counselors are sometimes bouncing back and forth between tasks. We'll say that our our minutes per time block, we're going to use 20. But you should use whatever makes sense for your school. You're setting up a default, and counselors will have a chance to modify this and tweak it a little bit, but this will be the default setting for your counselors. So I'm going to save, and then I'm going to add a counselor. I'm going to add me again. So I'm just putting in first name, last name, and an email address. We have a note up here about the importance of making sure that counselors can receive email from the address asa@asainstitute.org. If your school has pretty heavy-duty filtering software, you might check in with your technology person or whoever manages the email system at your school and make sure that that address can get through. If your counselors are expecting this and they say that they don't get it, or if you check in with them and they say they haven't received it, make sure that they've checked their spam folder to see that it didn't get caught up there. So now I'm going to save, and here's me as a new counselor. I can edit this information. So if I noticed, oh, I've got a typo in that email address, I can edit, and it just takes me back to the form. I can also resend the link. So if the address wasn't set up, that it could get through your spam filters, and you have to make that change, you can send the link again. Or if somebody tells you, I have deleted that email and I don't have my link, you can send it again. You can also, if need be, remove a counselor. So if somebody has left the building, you can take them off this list. So now I'm going to go over to my email, and oh, I don't have the email yet. There it is. You see it comes from the American Student Achievement Institute, and I have some text here about it. The important part is this personal link. This link is my link, and it should only be used by me because it goes to my log. So this is a link that I will want to save. I'll want to hold on to this email, put it in a special folder, and make sure that I always have access to that link. I can use this link on any computer as long as I can get to it from my email. Okay. So when I open my special link, it gives me the log, and it tells me that here's my school name, and here it says time use log for Amy Drake Siegel, and then I have this. So my weekly contract hours, let's say that that's 40. I need to fill this in before my log will work. If I go over to log, it's going to say that I have to complete that first tab first. And then my FTE. So I would be at 40 hours a week, I would be a 1.0. If I'm a half-time counselor, then it would be 0.5. If I'm a 3/4, it's 0.75. So that's your full-time equivalency. And then I'm going to set some time use goals. Say I want to spend 50%. Ideally, I would be sending 50% in guidance. And if I'm not sure what we mean by guidance, I can click on the little info icon, and this will pop up and give me some examples. So classroom guidance activities, individual guidance, career interest inventories, financial aid night, anything that helps students master guidance standards. Same thing with counseling. I can pop that up and have some examples. Let's say that I want to spend 25% of my time, and you can see down at the bottom, it's totaling up my time. I'm at 75% already. Say 10 and 10 and 5. Okay, now log setup. If I'm someone who does my lesson planning or comes into school very early to get things ready, I may need to start my log time before 7 a.m. or if it depends on what time the counselor starts their day. And the same thing with the login time. If I know that it's pretty typical that I'm going to be here till 6 o'clock, then I can, go ahead and change that. Or, yeah. So it uses the default that we set in the first window. So then I'm going to say, yes?
I was going to say, before you move from that tab, can you explain FTE on paper? What if they have a split school?
If you are working at 2 buildings, we strongly recommend that you have 2 logs. So you would need to have a log for each building. And then you would be, if you're half-time at one school, you'd be a 0.5 for this particular school, and you would be a 0.5 at your other school. If you're splitting your time, if you're 3/4 time at one school, that'd be 0.75. And if you're only quarter time at the other school, then it's 0.25 at that school. This does it's one of those things where the counselors who are at more than one building, you want to have data for each of those buildings, because your expectations from the principal or even just your student population can make your time use at each building very different. And so you need data for each building. So you'll have 2 codes to juggle. If you're at 3 schools, you'll have 3 codes to juggle. But it's very important that you do that so that you have accurate data for each of your schools.
Okay, and then if you have a log in time of 5 o'clock and you do a parent-teacher conference until 9?
There are a couple ways that you can handle that. You can either adjust your log in time so that it's 9 o'clock, and you'll be able to put that on the exact day. The other thing that I know some counselors have done is that they've used these weekend hours to add. So let's say that, by and large, they're out of school by 5 o'clock. This is the actual log where you're going to put in Monday through Friday, starting with this week. Again, we have the definitions of each of the categories, including paid time off, free time, and we'll talk about the unknown category. So I know, like in the scenario that Debbie gives, where you're doing, let's say, a financial aid night till 9 o'clock, and that's really an unusual thing. You don't normally stay until 9 o'clock, so you don't necessarily want to change your log so that it's always going until 9 o'clock. What you can do, though, is maybe put it in, if it's a guidance activity, you could put the extra hours in as Saturday or Sunday. We do give you those weekend hours, but they can also be used for time that you don't have in your typical log setup. Does that answer your question, Debbie?
Nope, I think you covered it. Thank you.
Okay, so looking at how you log time, we have a couple of little tricks in store. Let's say that I was doing a lesson that started at 8 a.m. I don't have to actually click, what I'm typing in is a description of my activity, and then I can come over here and we'll say that's a guidance activity. And now if I hold down Shift, let's say that went in through 9 o'clock. If I click in the 8:40, I've filled up my 20-minute time blocks for that whole hour. So again, we call it the shift click. So you put in your first, let's say that we're doing planning, and that's a management. And if I did that for an hour, I would hold down my shift key and then click the rest of my hour. Okay? So that for tasks that take more than a 20-minute block, that will make your entry a lot faster. So we do have, okay, looking at the different types, we do have paid time off. So if you have vacation days, personal days, sick days, holidays, you can put those in as paid time off. So let's say that, looking ahead, that our school observes Veterans Day on Monday, November 12th, and my contract hours for Mondays start at 8 a.m. I have paid time off. I can shift click to the end of our day, and now I have the whole day, the whole school day counted as a holiday. Going back to the week we started, let's say that I'm kind of reconstructing what happened on Monday this week. And I know that I did those first 2 hours, but I really am not sure how I spent 10 o'clock and the 10:20 blocks. I could put in not sure, unknown, shift click, and now I've got that for those 2 blocks. I'm going to caution you. There are going to be times, we put this in here because we know things can move quickly at schools. There may be time, if you didn't write it down in your planner, if you didn't write it down ahead of time, you may have trouble, or you got called to something else and that kind of threw your day off. There are going to be times when you have to use that unknown category. We highly, highly recommend that you use it as sparingly as possible, because anything that's unknown, it detracts from the data that you have about where you're spending your time in guidance, counseling, advocacy, management, and non-program. Those are your important categories. So, we give you that so that you can, you were at school, you were doing something, but you just can't remember what it is. You can use that, but you really want to make sure that you're using that as infrequently as possible. And speaking of planning your week, we give you a tool. We found that a lot of counselors, in order to kind of get control of their day, they like to use a planning ahead tool. So this is a report that you can pull up and print out, or you can save, you can copy and paste it into Word, and you can kind of plan out your week, and maybe in broad strokes, maybe in a detailed way. But if that helps you so that you can come back and put everything in, it's a tool that we have. When you notice that I had entered a few things, and so it already had those in there. So if I put things in and then had, spare time or other times that I was going to fill in later, but not necessarily at my computer with my log open, I could, just pencil those in and then enter them when I did have time. We do have instructions here too, so anybody who needs those. Debbie, is there anything I've missed in covering on the actual log? I guess down at the bottom, let's say that I did some work at home or came in on the weekend, and I was working on advocacy. Let's say that I was writing a letter on a student's behalf, advocating for that student, and it took me 2 hours and 25 minutes. I can put that in on my Saturday. The log is saving automatically, and you can see up here it does say saved, so it saves as you work. There's no save button on this. Once you start getting data in, you'll start building a summary report, and the summary report starts with your goals. It gives you a summary for the year, and then it gives you your weekly entry. So since I've started entry on these 2 weeks, it tells me what I have so far. So blank lets you know how many contract hours have not been filled in yet. So obviously I have some work to do. And I can also print this report. Up at the top, there's a link for that. And we have some graphs that let us look at over time how much we're spending in each of the areas. This is fun to see build because you can see how you're, as you're putting in more information, how you're spending your time, but also over the year, how your time changes. I'm sure a lot of high schools, as we're doing, or well, all schools really, since counselors are so often involved in testing, your non-program can come up in the spring while you're in the non-testing, or while you're in the non-program area doing testing, and other times you'll see where you're doing a lot more counseling or a lot more guidance. And then we have tips, and that's one of the things is about which category to use. The other is a little demo of the shift click so that you can quickly fill out your log when you're doing more than one thing for over a period of time. So that is how you keep your log. Dave, is there anything else I can answer on that?
I don't think so, but I kind of I totally shut down for a little bit, so I'm not sure what I missed out on.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry about that. And I was going to say, though, I was going to ask you to explain how this is an improvement over what we've had, but you've already explained that with the graphs.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, just that, we have these data reports. In the past, counselors had to do this on spreadsheets that meant that each counselor had their own spreadsheet, and it was all, their data was, kind of locked away. Now that we have this counselor time use log, I'll show you the nice thing is that we can have a report for our school. So if my school has multiple counselors, now I have a report that looks at my whole department. It looks at each of my counselors to see, maybe we realize that, Debbie's getting stuck with all the non-program, or somebody's getting all of the management, and maybe we need to spread that around so that we can spend more. We've distributed our work more fairly, or we can look at this together and as a department, and then we have a graph for our whole school so we can really see what are we doing throughout the year, all of us together.
And it's also a little more simple. It's more simple than the spreadsheet.
Oh yeah, the spreadsheets were very complicated and cumbersome, and so this we feel is a big step forward. I know that no one loves to log their time, but there was a time actually before the spreadsheets when counselors were doing this when Sue started, when she was a school counselor and she was asked to log her time, she had to do that with pencil and paper and go through and figure out, every minute, and then count up all of those manually, and, hope that she figured up all of her percent, doing all the math late at night on her own back in the day. So, this is leaps and bounds ahead of that, and that nobody really has to sit and do the math, because that's one thing computers are very good at is math. So that's the time use log.
Yeah, I don't see any questions right now. I do have one thing that I remember from last year. Do you know, or what are your thoughts on adding in your time slot student, or do you add the counselor name, or does that matter?
Well, I think you're talking about when I'm in my weekly log.
Yes.
Is it okay to put, like if I'm doing counseling with a particular student, would I put?
Correct.
Okay. This is your log, and as long as you don't share your link with anyone, nobody else is going to see this. We have it encrypted. If you leave it open, then somebody else could see it. Or if you printed your week and you've put in student names, if you leave that laying around, then somebody could see it. I know that some counselors will use initials so that there's no risk of directly identifying a student, or if they put a name, they don't necessarily, they would put a name and then just code that time as counseling, but they wouldn't put like, Jane Smith suicidal, because of the potential of making a mistake. So that's something that we leave to your discretion. Um, and I know counselors have handled that in other ways, in ways that they feel comfortable with.
Great.
But we don't look at your counselor logs, and nobody but you, because of the way the setup page works. Let me go back to that. On this page, if I resend a link, it just says resend the link to Amy's Drake Siegel. And I say, okay, that gets emailed directly to me. So it's not like we have the link here where anybody who can log into your steering team system can get that link. So it is very much a link just for you. And those details, stay in your log. As you noticed in the report, it doesn't break down individual logs. It just gives the percentages.
Right. We can see the results of your logging, but not your actual logging.
Exactly. So again, if it's something where somebody else uses the same computer you do and you're worried about them seeing, you're worried about student confidentiality, then you might want to just use initials or code that in some way that would not be easily recognizable.
Right. And so the importance of logging now, and I want you to stay on with me so I don't miss anything, is again that foundation of collecting data. And later what we're going to look at is where are the counselors spending their time? Where do we need to free up time from one section? And if we do, how can our counsel help troubleshoot? Let's say your non-program is at 50%. And if you're spending a lot of time with, if that shows up to a counselor, or I'm sorry, to your advisory council, then your council may have the question, so what is it you're doing that's taking 50% of your time in non-program? And you can say, you look at it and it's bus duty. Then you can troubleshoot, what can we do to scale back that bus duty time?
Absolutely. And that's something that schools have done. We've been working with schools for years, and there are times when the principal looks at this and says, oh my gosh, I had no idea I had put so much on you that isn't guidance and counseling. Or, this is too much time in the guidance and counseling department spent doing things that other people could do. And so, they look at reallocating. I know there was a principal who saw this data and is like, I can't take everything off your plate. I still need somebody to do bus duty and lunch duty, but I promise that every year I'm going to try to move something so that you can spend more time in guidance and counseling. And so it's all about allocating resources. It could be that you're at a school where this is just how time has to be spent, and so you're going to have to do the best you can with it. But it's something we hope that schools can be very thoughtful about how they allocate. Their main resource in guidance and counseling is the counselor. So we think that all data is important. The data is important. What you do with it is based on your school's needs and resources.
Right. And then the reason for the continual logging through the whole year is you may find that what you're going to find is in the spring, your workload is going to be different than in the fall. And you wouldn't want to miss out on that rich data of how much time you spend in, let's say, career. Let's say in the fall, you would spend more time doing college readiness. No, that would be in the spring, right?
It depends. Well, I know right now, because the FAFSA deadline, or not deadline, but you can fill out FAFSAs earlier and getting college applications. Yeah, so a lot of that can happen in the fall now. So you could be doing a lot of guidance with college preparation right now.
Right, and you may not pick that up if you're not logging the full year round. Spring and fall logging, right? Okay. Thank you.
You are welcome. Do I need to shoot that back to you?
Sure, if you want to shoot it back to me, and then I'll try to figure out how to get back on track. Okay, show my screen.
There you go.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so we're going to flip through some slides that Amy's already walked you through. And we're going to head right into how will you use the student achievement goals. We will review this data when we're determining your school's vision and goals. How will you use the student opportunity self-study data? That's where we will review the data when planning future activities. And how will you use the elements of model school counseling program data? We will review this data annually when updating your program. So these are all tasks that I'm going to show you in the online system that are going to be due this month. And I just wanted you to know the importance of why we're collecting this data. The student achievement goals, that comes from your school improvement plan. Isn't that correct, Amy?
Yes.
Okay. So, okay, I'm going to head over. Let's see if we can get right to the online system. Oh, that did not take me where I wanted to go. So let me go find it. Oh, shoot. See, my screen went off, so I'm not sure how to get to the online system to demonstrate this, Amy.
Debbie, would you like me to take back? Oh, there you go.
Did I get it? Okay. All right. So when we're looking at the online system, we're going to go down. We're on the process page. So we've logged in, gone to the process page, and we're going to head down to collect data. When we get to collect data, here is step 3 and 4, which Amy walked you through. We have a task called Complete School Demographics. Again, this is all about collecting data. So you're going to go to this inner edit icon. If you click there, it's going to show you questions on your school demographics. So your school name should automatically be pre-filled, but the number of students in your school, your student group, and I'm going to kind of rush this because I know we're running short on time. We want to get you out in about an hour. So this is one of the tasks that we ask you to do when we're collecting data. Oh, now if we go back in step 6, we ask for that student achievement goals. This says down here the note, it's from the school improvement plan. So this is going to be an upload. Let's see. So you would go to this upload icon and upload the information that you've collected from your school improvement plan on what your student achievement goals are. If it's not easy to get to, because I know sometimes they're not easy to read and you want to use our form in this download, the tools column, if you click the download, it'll come up with a form that you can fill out and just type in or write in your school goals from that improvement plan. And then after you do that, you're going to have to upload it. Right, with this same enter icon on the upload. And then on step 7, we have elements of model school counseling program self-study. Again, it's just going to be a form you get to fill out in the online system. If you click the enter edit button, we have a list of questions. Element 1, your organizational structure. So you'll just go down and answer what is applicable, what is happening at your school right now, so you can evaluate, what exceeds expectation, what may be missing, and that's one thing that we'll be working on is filling the missing pieces, what's not satisfactory, so we know again what we need to work on. And it goes down to program foundations, professionalism, counselor attributes, program resources. So it's a lengthy little questionnaire, but I think you're going to find you get good information here. Yes. And then on to step 8, student opportunities self-study. Again, you select the inner edit icon, and you're going to input what of these opportunities that are out there do you take advantage of. The number of students or the percentage of students who, estimated or actual, who have the opportunity while enrolled in your school to take a learning assessment, to participate in academic support or tutoring. So you're just gonna put the percentage in there, and then you're gonna answer who provides the opportunity. Is it provided by the school, a group other than the school? It's not provided. This opportunity is not provided. And then that, I think, is that's a pretty short one. And then make sure when there's a save icon that you always select that save button. And then the Indiana Resource Utilization Self-Study, again, you're going to select enter, and you're going to select which of those resources that are provided that you use. And that's pretty easy. And then you're going to select save at the bottom. And then the program self-study. Let's see. You're going to download the program self-study resource. And it's just going to ask you the annual budget for your department, the number of students per pupil, expenditures. This human resources section, you've already filled some of this in your time use log area. So your estimate of how you spend your time currently. And then eventually you're going to be able to put in the actual time, and then you're going to be able to, the adjusted FTE is going to also come out on the report from that time use log. And then you're going to figure the number of students, the student to counselor ratio. And then you're going to upload that one, see that as well. Let's see if I can get back. Shoot, there we go. So then after you fill out that form, you're going to go over here and you're going to select the upload. Anytime that you complete a task, remember you're going to need to submit it. And when you submit it, it's going to ask you what team member is submitting that item. So you're going to select that person. You're going to go down to, I've reviewed the rubric items, which here it will show you the rubric. So make sure you read through to make sure that that will meet the criteria that we have set for you, and you're going to hit submit. The other place that you can look, I know we talked about this last time, is the end of each section. You're going to see the rubric items, and you can hit the print report or the report button there, and it's going to show you the rubric for that specific section. So then just real quickly, I don't think that I will click on, I don't think I'm going to go through this because we're going to, again, have a resource for you to train you on the webinar. But you see the tools down here in section 3, step 11. It's it will be the video will be posted there. You will be able to look over the student survey questions. So you would just click this icon. You can see what the suggested survey time needed for each question. If I look there, it's gonna pull up a form, and I think we allow 15 seconds per question to come up with our time as far as the length of time it takes for the survey. And then right on step 14 would be where you're actually going to go to set up that survey. So you would click this Enter Edit icon, and it's going to take you over to this page. But again, let's wait on that because I don't want to complicate things for you guys. So we'll go back to finish up the PowerPoint. And again, if you have any questions, quick type those in because we're just about done. So with the survey administration, who takes the survey? All students. So we're going to go kindergarten through 12th grade. The kindergarten through second grade survey is a teacher-read survey where the teachers will have a paper in front of them with a list of very few questions, and then the students can just raise their hand, put their heads on their desk and raise their hands to answer those questions, and the teacher then will tally them. How long does it take to administer the survey? And again, this is a tool that's in the online system, but this is kind of the breakdown that we have. It's based on 15 seconds per question, but what we found is it usually takes about 10 seconds per question. When is the survey window? We are going to have the survey window open between January 1st and February 1st. How do I get students to the computer? Again, we'll have a webinar that's going to help explain that. I know Sue likes the idea of doing it in like your first period class. Everybody in first period class will take the survey all at one time, and then it's one and done.
Debbie, I want to mention real quick that because there are so many devices that students have access to now, like in some schools they're using iPads, you know, at high schools just about everybody has a phone. Some schools are using Chromebooks. We're going to have the survey set up so that any device that a student is on, as long as it has a browser and an internet connection, they can take the survey.
Yes, thank you.
That can help with resources too. So I just wanted to mention that so that in your planning, you have that information.
Thank you, Amy. And then whenever you set up the survey, each grade level will have its own survey administration code. So the 8th grade, the code will be one code, and the 9th grade will have its own specific code. So again, you'll get those codes when you actually set up the survey, but I just wanted to kind of give you a heads up on how that's going to look. So another important thing is to know that the survey is actually a back-to-back survey, but they appear as one survey. We'll give you this explanation again in the training, just so students don't get confused on why they get asked their demographics twice. Okay, and I think actually we've already done this. So the other announcement we want to make is in the next, we're going to have a November update that goes out to all of the schools. And in that update, we are going to be reworking that student survey, the questions. And so we want to give the schools the opportunity, especially those schools that are renewal schools with RSC, you will have an opportunity to help review the questions. So one, you'll be able to suggest changes for current questions with a keep, omit, or revise. You can suggest new questions and then suggest what you think is an appropriate survey length time. So that will be, again, coming up in the November update. So please look forward to those instructions. So that is our data collection plan. Does anybody have any questions?
Hey, Debbie.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention in the manual, I believe there will be a link to an actual data collection plan, a document that the steering team can use. I'm not sure that that's up yet, but we'll have that up tomorrow when we post the video and go over the changes to the manual. But yeah, there's an actual document that you can use for planning your data collection.
There you go. Sorry about that. Thank you. And remember the 5-minute rule. Contact me, Debbie Howell, at howell@asainstitute.org or 812-349-4142 if you have any questions. And like I said, don't hesitate, call me. So with that, I don't see any questions. Do you, Amy?
No, I don't.
All right. So thank you for all you do to make a difference in educating and caring for our children. Thank you all, and I guess that will wrap the video. Do you have anything else, Amy?
Nope, no, just thank you all for being here. We appreciate what you're doing for kids.
Yeah. Thank you and have a good day.